We're here to talk about Stargirl, streaming currently on Disney Plus, based on a book by Jerry
Spinelli. It says Stargirl is a 2020 American musical romantic drama film based on the novel of the same name by Jerry Spinelli that debuted on Disney Plus. The film explores the tense emotions, nonconformity, and self-expression of teenagers in high school and the exuberance of first love.
Where'd you get that from?
Wikipedia. Good source of info. Directed
sources.
by Julie Hart and starring
A whole bunch of Disney kids.
Grace Vanderwall as Susan Stargirl Caraway and Graham Verscheer as Leo Borla.
Leo Borla?
And a bunch
it sounds like boar in his name. Like
yes, it does. Like a wild pig.
Okay, so what did we think? Well, let's just randomly
go around the table.
Yeah. Speed lightning round. Olive G. What did you think of the movie?
What do you think of it?
It was kind of weird.
It was kind of weird. Why would you say that?
Because I think she's magic. It was kind of weird how everything was just going awesome at that ball party, and then suddenly that lady was like still inside. They were talking. She was like saying sorry about the bike.
Yeah. Were you paying attention? You probably weren't paying attention. Yeah.
I didn't get a single thing.
Wow.
At least you admit it, though.
Yeah, I don't blame you for not giving your full attention to this one. I guess I'll go next. Yeah, I did not enjoy this film at all. It reminded me a lot of like, for a while there, it was Hollywood was just spitting out all these like manic pixie dream girl movies where like some bland fade into the background guy is sort of like brought out of his shell and made more whole by some magical girl who comes out of nowhere and just sort of drags him from his little, hidey hole of introversion and just suddenly he's just like, oh my god, she's perfect and we're in love, and then you find out, oh gosh, she's kind of crazy, and drama ensues. And I kind of thought those films died out, and well, lo and behold, they made one in 2020.
Yeah.
Thank you, Disney.
Jane?
I think that the movie was pretty good. There were a few scenes, I guess, in the book that weren't there in the movie, which wasn't that great.
Yeah, you read the book. You actually read the book.
What were some of the differences?
In the beginning of the movie, everyone's thinking for the right words.
Okay.
Is the book told from Leo's point of view?
Yes, he's like first person, like narrating it.
Okay.
But in the movie, yeah, he's not like, he's sort of narrating it, like his voice comes in the background sometimes. But it's not the same as the book.
Like you seem to be about to say that when she first appears in the book, was it different than how she first appears in the movie?
Like, first of all, I can't remember if he's in the marching band or not, but he doesn't see her he sees her on his birthday because the whole ukulele song was the same as in the book.
Right.
But he doesn't see her like really early in the movie or in the morning when he's at marching band practice. It's at lunch.
Is in the book, like, one thing I found kind of weird in the movie was everybody's like, just, oh, did you see her? Did you see her?
Yeah, they were like that in the book too.
Like, what was that about?
I don't know.
Why would anybody care?
But I think at some points they weren't really talking about her. I think they were talking about something else.
No.
That's the impression. They all were talking about her, because I get the impression that they weren't all talking about her.
Well, if they were talking about something else, they never brought it up again.
Because there's that scene towards the beginning where they're kind of all going into, I guess, the school for the first time in the day.
Yeah.
And somebody says, did you see her? And, like, it's almost like he's surprised, right? Leo's character is surprised. I think Kevin addresses him. And then some of the other kids, they don't... I feel like they say something like, did you see her? But I don't know if they're talking about the same thing. Are they? I
got the impression they're all talking about this girl that was there, but I don't know why. I don't, like, when somebody new, I mean, I granted it's a tiny town, but when somebody new shows up, you're not like constantly did you see them? Did you see them? And they seem to be like instantly honing in on like, oh, well, she's gonna be your girlfriend, especially Kevin. Like,
Yeah, that was annoying.
why were they just like, oh yeah, you better make a move, or you better do something, because
I didn't think that was out of place. What I did think was interesting while we were watching it, you mentioned, like, I don't know if she gave him ties. Was that a thing in the book, that
Was
he
that a
would
thing
get
in the
ties?
I don't remember. That's the thing. And if I did remember, it probably wasn't her, because she never said so.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because that would be stalkerish.
well, she never fessed up to it in the movie either, but it clearly was her.
Right.
Like, yeah,
That's
and like
strange.
yeah, and
then her office.
where there's
Where
just
she
like
does-
newspaper clippings of
Yeah.
everybody,
And she does good deeds,
and she
and
has
it's
like she has the kids'
She
How
knows
does it
house.
work?
where
Money.
she knows their birthday. She knows where Leo lives.
He lives with a heart on it, and it's just like she's been giving him ties since he was in first grade.
Well,
That's
not
kind of
first grade, but-
stalkerish, actually.
Well, how old was he when he got?
It was pretty stalkerish.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
pretty stalkerish.
like,
I thought you said it wasn't.
How,
I was
how
like,
old was he
That
supposed
is
to
the
be?
definition of stalker.
How old was he supposed to be when that
I
began?
feel like 4th, 5th grade.
I think
Still.
he was younger.
I mean, she was just basically a 9 or 10-year-old kid, and she's like, oh, I'm going to give him ties for his birthday every year.
Well, you did say homeschool kids, if you're strange.
Yeah,
Every
true.
homeschool.
Homeschool
So-
kid, so yeah.
That her little office sanctuary thing reminded me of Sarah.
Oh.
Who's Sarah?
Gumball.
Her name is Sarah Gelato or something.
Yeah.
Sarah Gelato. She's, the ice cream cone on Gumball. She like sang like an entire song. And guess what? She was also playing a ukulele. It's like the weapon of choice for the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. A ukulele.
I'm quirky.
Cookie.
What else? I mean, was there anything
I'm
else
pretty
in the
sure she
from
said,
the?
am I like a cookie character? And she basically dressed up in cat ears and put makeup on,
Yeah.
played the ukulele, and she was like,
Exactly. This girl in the movie was a trope. She was such a trope, right down to the ukulele.
Yeah.
She couldn't have throw me a curveball, have her play a harmonica or something.
That would have been cool.
or ukulele. Oh, God.
She was playing the
She
ukulele.
was there, or umbira or something weird. Was there anything else in the book that was very different from the movie?
And you know that Hillary Kimball character?
Yeah, there was that minor subplot.
There was Hillary
Who's
Kimball.
Hillary Kimball again?
She's that girl who got in that argument with Stargirl about her brother and the bike. In the movie, she had a good reason to be mad and upset. In the book, she was just a jerk.
She was like the bully character, I guess.
Yeah.
When I was watching the movie, anytime they would cut away to her, I always got the impression she was jealous and that it was going to develop into something, because it was like, oh, in the beginning, there's all the people at her table, and Stargirl there is sitting with she had
Two
two
other people.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then by the middle of the movie, everybody's sitting with Stargirl, and two people are sitting with
No, only one person.
I think it was the
that
guy,
her
her boyfriend.
two or one
Yeah.
are sitting with Hillary. So I thought, oh, this is gonna.
This is
Here
gonna
comes
show
the
down.
conflict. Here's the
Right.
she's gonna do something mean and something's gonna, but then it never really happened. And then the big reveal comes and you realize, yeah, she's pretty justified in her aggrievement against Stargirl there.
Kind of.
Yeah. You shouldn't do things without finding out the backstory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But I don't think her intention was malicious. I think she.
No, I don't. Yeah, I doubt her intention was malicious either. I just think that she was. To me, it felt like Stargirl there was so wrapped up in her. Oh, I'm this whimsical angel who will do all these good things for no reason, and I'm gonna do all these nice things, and that's what caused her to do this thing. That if she had just either A, left well enough alone, which is probably what any normal sane person would do, or just done a little research and or even some basic thinking oh, why is this thing here in the store? Wouldn't they want the kid to have it again? Nah, there must be a reason, but I'll just screw the parents. I'm just going to do this, and I'll put streamers on it, and now it'll be great. She should have just left well enough alone.
Well, what about the incident with the boy from the opposing football team? Was she justified in going with him?
To me, that just felt like part of her person. Did that happen in the book? It felt to me like that was
Part of her personality.
and that felt in character for her, considering the way she was. Was that like in the book at all?
I don't think so.
Was there any sort of like in the book? Was there anything that
Did
like
she become
led
the
to
popular girl?
that led to the backlash against Stargirl? Because that was like the turning point. Suddenly, like everybody hated her for doing what she did there. Was there anything in the book where everybody was just like, enough of this?
I don't think it was anything like that. I think that people just thought that she was some weirdo outcast.
Did she ever like achieve the level of popularity that she did by that point?
I don't think so.
So she was never like the school's lucky charm or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
never like.
Oh, that was never part
They
of
didn't
the
bring
book.
up anything like Lucky Charms or stuff like that.
Okay, because this
that makes more sense.
that makes more sense.
If that was in the
Yeah.
book, that makes more sense than the way it was portrayed in the movie.
Well, I guess considering this is supposed to be a Disney and it's considered musical,
They needed to throw in
they needed to sort of amp it up a little bit because it seemed a little crazy that suddenly during like some random football game she walks out on the field, plays her little ukulele, and like that was another thing that like kind of like I thought was ridiculous. Who the hell would hear her?
Yeah.
With her little, whispery
Mousy voice,
voice, playing a ukulele, nobody is going to hear what she's saying. The most you would see is somebody in the stands going, "Get off the goddamn field!" But yeah, after that, suddenly it was just like, "Hey, she's our lucky charm," and everybody
Loves
is just
her.
instantly in love with her.
I didn't dislike the movie, but I wasn't completely sold on it. So my takeaways from it were that even though the relationship between her and Leo moved at a very believable pace, Cinnamon didn't move at a believable pace.
No, it's like Speedy Gonzalez.
Adorable.
Cinnamon was cute, but I think even though Stargirl and Leo's relationship moved at a believable pace, I don't feel like the other overlying themes in the story work. Like, I agree with you. I don't think that all of a sudden, like, everybody would be like, oh, let's just be friends with Stargirl. She's so amazing and she's magic. And I think, I mean, just going from what I remember about being a teenager, I think certain people are more quick to be friendly, but I think some aren't. And I think we live in an age where, I'm not saying that suspicion is like the first thing, but I think kids now, because of all the things that they know and all the information that they're exposed to, are a little bit more savvy.
Yeah.
Even if they live in a small town. I mean, everyone has social media. And I think that...
Except Stargirl.
Except for
She didn't
Stargirl,
even
right.
have a phone.
She didn't even have a phone. But I think that kids now would proceed with caution. And I don't think that they would all gravitate to her the way that they gravitated to her in this movie. So I found that part of it not believable.
It was, to the point. Yeah, it was off-putting almost. And
it took me out of the story a little.
Yeah, because you're trying to have this movie that's based in reality, and then you have like this.
That's when she went through her Susan phase because her stupid boyfriend told her to be normal.
But what I was getting at was you're trying to make this more realistic type of film, and then suddenly everybody acts so bizarrely in service to the plot that it almost gives this girl, she is magic. And she was not a magical person. She wasn't an alien. She wasn't a god or a devil or anything like that. Although it sometimes felt that way. I mean, like even at the end when she's guiding everybody out of the dance hall. I mean, seriously, the first thought I made that joke. Oh, she's leading them into a mountain where they'll never be seen again, because it really felt like it reminded me of the Pied Piper.
I hate to be a jerk, but when I'm watching that scene, I was like, she's a terrible dancer. You know, for someone who's
Well,
supposed to be
yeah.
manic pixie girl, I'm
Well,
like,
the Manic
her-
Pixie Girl's never really a good dance. They jump around and wave their arms. It's like,
Is that it?
I'm free.
I thought the manic
She
pixie
did
girl
that
was good at
just-
everything.
Wild
She did that
abandon.
just like them. Like,
Yeah.
All right,
jumping
turn it down.
around,
Turn it down.
waving her arms.
She was flailing. Yeah.
Flailing. That is a good description of that.
That is
So
the
I
best attitude.
found that off-putting. I also
And why didn't he go with her at the end of, like, she walked away after that?
right. That was
Why
another
didn't
thing.
he go after? If he was so in love with this
Her.
girl,
Right.
he really was totally cool with her just walking off.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. That was another. You know, it's funny that you said that because I think at one point in the movie I turned to you and I said, what he should do is get in his car and just drive
Yeah, after
slowly
they got into the argument.
into that
It's like,
argument. He
what?
should, as a gentleman, get in the car and just drive next to her and make sure that she got home okay.
Yeah.
And I think he was. Well, I mean, this is probably like his first girlfriend, right? So
I think
he
that was like the whole
probably
point.
doesn't,
Was it was
know
like
how to
first
act.
loves. And,
right?
yeah, I don't know. He just the main character. What's his name? Leo.
Leo.
Yeah, that's his name.
He there's nothing really there to grab onto as far as the character goes.
Yeah,
he was
he
as
just
bland
wasn't.
as bland
Yeah,
could
and I
be.
have to tell you, my favorite character was Kevin. I think I mentioned that before, but
My
Yeah.
favorite character was Cinnamon.
favorite character was Cinnamon. Why was Cinnamon your favorite character?
He was adorable. He is adorable.
Yes.
My favorite character is Cinnamon too.
Yeah,
And
why'd
he's
you like?
adorable. Just like
Copy.
how Mercy said.
Mm-hmm.
He's a beautiful rat.
Who did you like?
I would probably say Kevin was the only believable character to me as far as like the motivations that he had and just the way he acted. He seemed
Genuine.
the most genuine, and
Unbelievable. Yeah.
he wasn't really doing anything spectacular that made him interesting. But fortunately for him, nobody else was either. Stargirl, I found irritating.
Slightly.
She was there. I mean, I could totally see where some like when she first goes onto the football field and starts singing. I was like, oh, here's the part where the cheerleaders are going to be like, oh, who's this attention hog? You know.
Right. And that's.
But that didn't turn out at all. It was like
Right.
where that doesn't seem right. I mean, okay, she sang an okay song that nobody in reality would have been able to hear.
Yeah.
But she's strumming gently on a ukulele. I can't get over the damn ukulele. It was
Yeah.
like, come on,
Stereotypical.
a little bit more original. Come on, give her something else.
A flute. Damn it.
Flute. Well, she has to sing, but
Does she have to sing?
yeah. Well, I think honestly that was the whole point. It was- this was Disney once again showcasing
A
young
keyboard.
people singing.
Yeah.
Was,
Yes.
for example, in the book, was there any singing?
No.
No, of course not. There
Did
was,
she run around with a ukulele?
She did have the ukulele.
She did.
did Leo sing at the end? No.
What about a violin?
Did they have a little duet to cheer her up or anything like that? No. Yeah, that was Disney.
What if you had a saxophone?
Disney has that factory where they have those children that they pump out and they got to make them sing every once in a while or else they melt or something like that.
Yeah, you gotta earn their keep. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it. It was just one of those things where it was like,
I'd probably, out of 10, I'd probably give it a 4 and 4.25.
So a little
4.25.
below average for you. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
I would pinpoint 4.
I would give it a 2.
2.
Yeah, I feel like I said
I don't feel like it's the worst thing I've ever seen.
it's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
What was that alligator movie where we were caught?
You know what? I would watch that alligator movie
Over
9
this.
out of 10 times over this.
Really?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know anything what was going on. I saw somebody get eaten out of a boat. I'm like, okay, well that's entertaining.
Absolutely.
Olive,
What would you give it?
what would you give it?
0 from 10. 0 to 10.
2.5.
2.5. Why would you give it a 2.5?
It wasn't that in my interest.
Yes, I could see that because you didn't see a lot of what was going on. You're too busy hung up on me.
And laughing and rolling around on the couch and playing with your goddamn unicorn.
And farting.
Alright.
Easy. Easy.
Alright.
Yeah, I'd
So-
probably give it a 2, just because, like I said, the main character I found Leo. He was very bland and uninteresting, and like in the beginning, he had like a little interesting origin story, but then it was just like just didn't go anywhere.
Well, I think that was the whole point. He kind of lost that spark in him, right? He wasn't.
Yeah, like he
as a child,
he lost his flair.
Right. As a child, he didn't care, right? He didn't care, and he would wear his ties. But then when he moved to the new school, as usually happens with kids that are put in those situations, something happens that
No.
sort of crushes their...
He wore the tie to his dad's funeral, and then he wore it all
the time.
Right.
the time.
Right. But then
Until
when
it
he
got
got...
But then when he
cut
got
off.
then we got to the new school, then
Right.
something bad happened, and he was like, "I'm not going to wear this anymore. I'm never going to wear any ties. I'm going to blend in
Yeah.
and
I'm not
fade
gonna-
fade away into the background."
Right.
'Cause that-
Which I think is a very... I mean, see, this is why...
Teenagery thing.
I was going to just say, this is why I don't think it's as bad as you say it is. I like I said, I don't think it's the worst thing that I've ever seen. It's not the best thing, but it's not the worst thing. And I think, unfortunately, I would have liked to have seen more of that. Him really coming to terms with the idea of being more authentic. I think instead of having her, I mean, in a way, she's sort of like a guide to him, but it's interesting they're both about the same age, I'm assuming, but yet she's more mature and she's figured it out, and, you know, she lives this carefree life. And
But has she?
I guess in a way.
She's just being like this. Like I said, this. I'm whimsical for the sake of being whimsical. I'm gonna do everything all nice and sweet, and it's too much. It's like you become. It's like a lot of cartoons you see, like animes where we watch, or there's a character who's basically, I'm a specific attitude and I'm nothing but that. People aren't like that. There's like different layers, you know, you can sense more of their personality there.
But don't you
There's
think
something
that,
a little bit more complex.
Sure, agreed, but don't you think, and think back to when you were a teenager. I mean, because you're so young, because you haven't really experienced a lot in life, but you're kind of stuck in this like holding pattern. You're not a child, but you're not an adult, right? So at least from the experiences that I remember, there were people that went to the extreme, that did extreme stuff, that lived extreme lives,
That did
even at
stupid
that,
stuff.
that did stupid things, even that early on, only to prove that they were who they said they were. And then you had kids that were very vanilla, that followed the guidelines, that did all the
The
things that
norm.
the normal things that they were expected to do. And then you had kids that were super into themselves, super shy, did not come out of their shells. You wouldn't even know that they existed, basically. And I mean, and that's not even everything. That's just like snippets of what being a teenager is like, right? I mean, I'm sure you remember that.
Well, I mean, the point that I'm trying to make is, yeah, there's all those different personality types. You're making a movie here, and you want the main characters to be compelling, and you can't make a compelling character when they just run at one speed, when they're just one thing.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, we got a whole. It's like what I said with when you have like a side character who's one thing, and then you try to make the whole film about them.
Mhm.
It doesn't work because you need layers,
Mhm.
especially for the main characters. And the problem with Leo and the problem with Stargirl was they never really expanded beyond that, really. I mean, Stargirl, I guess, a bit because
She tried to become the thing that she thought that he
right,
wanted her
but
to be.
even that just didn't seem
Genuine.
genuine. It was
Right.
it was clear
No.
that she wasn't doing that for that. And another thing that you hope to have in your main characters is some measure of charm. I mean, Leo was the main character in this movie, and he was boring as hell. He was just a boring. Okay, he wanted to fade into the background. Mission accomplished, Leo. You faded into the background so much that I don't know why anybody would really want to be your friend. When you're interacting with your buddies in the diner or whatever, you're not saying anything remotely entertaining. You're not funny. You're not coming up with a good comment now and again. Nothing. And even aside from Kevin, the rest of your friends are just one notes too.
Yeah.
There's, does this burrito taste good? There's that kid. And then there was the girl with
No,
the
burrito tastes different.
whatever. He was fascinated with burritos. That was his entire mode of living. That was his entire purpose for living. I want to eat stuff. When they called on him to ask a question during the hot seat, what did he ask about? Do you get a discount at the concession stand? Okay, we get it. This guy likes food. And then there was the other girl who basically didn't say anything, and the only reason why I know anything about her is because she carried a camera. Oh, she's into photography. Did she say anything funny? Did she say anything remotely interesting? No, nobody did. Like I said, the only one who seemed to have a sprinkling of charm was Kevin.
Sure.
Leo was as interesting as a bucket of dirt.
But do you think, okay, let's look at it this way. From where the story started to where the story ended.
He did not develop at all.
You don't think?
No. He was as boring and as bland at the end of the movie as he was at the beginning. And okay, he got on stage and he sang a Cars song against his will.
Yeah, come on. That's like a teenager's worst nightmare.
I think that so this is my interpretation, and again, this is why I say it wasn't the best thing I saw, but it wasn't the worst thing I saw. The interpretation that I got was that she was the catalyst for the change that he wanted to be. He didn't really like being the way he was. Remember when he asked the mother, like, "Oh, were you ever worried about how other people perceived you?" That is a very, very big part of being a teenager and being a young adult.
I agree with that.
I think when you're that age, you try to fit in, and I think the people that don't rock the boat are the people that are afraid of being looked at and pointed and laughed about, right? So you have a lot of people that, like Thoreau, lead lives of quiet desperation because they don't feel like they have the strength, the bravery, whatever it is, to be more authentic, right? So I think that she was the catalyst that he needed to make that change. Yeah, he probably initially didn't want to get up on the stage, but then he did, and he did something out of his comfort zone. I mean, he could have just been like, no, I'm not doing this, right? But he didn't. He took the chance. And he did that
true.
Thing,
I'll give you that. Yeah,
he goes away to college. You see that at the end. He's out of his comfort. I mean, it's easy to just go to community college.
That I don't really see that as a major accomplishment because one, he never mentioned being afraid to go to college. He never said anything. Like I said, he was so bland and by the basics and disappeared.
But if you're living in a small town, what's the perception? The perception is that you're not going to get out of the small town. You're going to live and breathe and die there. No, think about it. How many people just know the four corners that they've lived in, that don't leave where they've been all their lives?
Well,
but he decided to go to college, right?
Right.
He decided
so did his friends.
I mean, yeah, but not everyone goes. So I think that, going away for college, I think, is a bigger deal than going to like community college.
But they never made a deal of it in the movie.
But I'm saying
was not. If they would have said, if there was like a friend who was just like, why am I even bothering? I'm never going to be able to escape this podunk town, stuff like that. Or even if he said it, but there was never anything like that. It was just. And another thing was, okay, he's bland, whatever. He's not, him and his friends aren't ostracized. They're not, it's like, who were the cool kids? Were there cool kids? Were there even,
the
you know what?
And the football
We're assuming. We don't know.
Right,
It's never illustrated in any, visible way. As far as bullying goes, we see he got bullied the very first day he showed up at school, but then after that, everybody's fine. Even the head of the football team's giving him high fives and stuff like that. Is his life so hard?
But he wasn't giving him football. I mean, the football guy wasn't giving him high fives before the whole Stargirl thing.
He wasn't being mean to him either.
He wasn't being mean to him.
The head of the football team seemed to be like a very nice guy.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying the whole point was life before her was drab. and kind of run of the mill.
Oh yeah.
But having her and having that experience of falling in love,
she magical.
she turned his life around. And remember how there was like a really, again, not the best thing I've ever seen, but not the worst thing. I think one of the stronger scenes was initially when they're taking their walk and she's like, yell. And he's like, why would I do that?
Yeah, he's too reserved.
He's too reserved. But then at the end, what does he do?
He yells.
He screams into the void.
But
because he wants the universe to acknowledge his existence. And that was something that was powerful, as she said, because when you're that age, when, again, you're not a child, but you're not an adult.
You know what? Maybe that would have carried more weight with me if the actor had any kind of charm or charisma that would make me believe that he changed. To me, even at the end, after he's gone to college, and also that narration where I don't know what happened to her. Well, maybe she's this. We all spoke about her so well, and blah. It was just like
I think that went on too long.
It went on too long, and it was sort of like
it meandered.
It meandered, but it also showed me you're still a shiftless. I'm gonna disappear in the background loser. You're still a loser. Why didn't you find out about her? Why didn't you? She's this huge in quote unquote huge influence on this kid who's supposedly changed the way he saw himself in the universe. He's crying out to the universe, "Look at me!" But then after this mind-blowing, life-changing experience that this girl bestowed upon him, he's just like, because she just disappeared, and then she became a legend, and blah, blah, and now she's just all she is a dusty serving tray in a trophy case somewhere in the back of the high school.
Serving tray.
It was like, come on, and now I'm supposed to believe you that you're this roaring look at me universe. I'm ready to be noticed. I'm gonna grab life by the you-know-whats and take
by the horns?
Yes, by the horns, of course. And I'm ready. I'm ready to take on the world. Watch out, world. Look at me. I'm yelling.
But I think you also miss the point of when somebody's used to living a certain way, it's hard to change. It's extremely hard, and I think that you have to take baby steps. And I think that's true for a lot of things. I mean, when addicts stop doing the things that are destructive to them, it's a process. It's every day.
That's
true.
And
it's interesting when you hear people talk about like alcoholism. I'm X amount of days sober. Every day is a struggle because they have this addiction, right? So I think that, obviously this wasn't the same case, but I think that when you're used to living a certain way, when you change those patterns, it's a challenge and it's not easy, and you have to take every day as it comes because this isn't inherent to you. He's probably, it's interesting, there was a conversation between the Leo character and the mother where she basically says, oh, your father was like this larger than life character, right? When I look at her, I don't get that vibe, and I'm thinking,
when you look at the mother?
When I looked at the mother,
okay.
So she gives up her life to move to a very, very small town and live a quiet life. And that's something that he mentions in the beginning of the movie. He's like, we moved to this little town, but this was even more little than I even anticipated it would be. And everything's quiet. So then when you get this splash of color, which is what I guess Stargirl represented, it was different. And I think that that's where, I'm sure the book is way better than the movie. Right? Because G mentioned that she really liked the book before.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure they explore it insanely better in the book, but one of the takeaways for me, and this is why I said I didn't think it was the worst thing I ever saw, was, to me, the whole experience, when people say sometimes it's not about getting from point A to point B, it's about the journey. So this young man's journey was kind of finding out who he was,
and what his place was in
the world. Because when, obviously, they're too young to be in this mad, passionate love affair to define the ages. That's not what this movie is about. This movie is about answering the inner call within you. And that's what I think. Do I think that he liked her? I think he liked her a lot. Was he madly in love with her? No.
No,
He's
no
a 16-year-old boy. And I think the same thing goes for her. I think she liked him, but was she going to slit her wrist for him? No.
Hell no.
So they were just two people that kind of became boyfriend and girlfriend for a brief amount of time, but she influenced him and he needed that. And I think that was the nice thing about the story, like exploring that aspect of when you're so timid or conservative that you're not living the most authentic life, but then to have this kind of breath of fresh air come out of nowhere and be like, you know what, feel free to be who you are. It's almost like giving permission to somebody and not even knowing that that person needed that permission. I mean, at the beginning of the story, it's his 16th birthday. What do you know at 16? You don't know anything. You think you know a lot, but you don't. And the person that you are at 16 is not who you are at 20. It's not who you are at 24. It's not who you are at 30. It's not who you are at 40. It's certainly not who you are at 50. I think it was a sweet story. I think the movie could have been dealt with in a better way.
I agree with you about all that. I just feel like the actor wasn't capable of pulling it off. He played the character, like I said, very blandly.
Yes.
There wasn't any charm. There wasn't any charisma to him. There wasn't anything that made me believe that he is the guy that the story should be about. It was like, all right, we took a background character, we made them the focus of the film. We tried to revolve the story around them. They hit all their marks, but they did it in the most perfunctory, robotic way imaginable. And at the end, when we want to see the full blossoming Leo, give it to us, Leo, and it's just a tiny fart in a room. It just doesn't. There was no sense of like, yeah.
So what would have made that?
I'm for that kid. He's.
So what would have made that story better?
Just better actor, better script. I mean, I'm not even like the story. I'm talking about like the dialogue, the interactions between people. Seriously.
The script was very bland.
That his relationship with his friends, where you're supposed to, and like in any of these films, I mean, we grew up on these films,
right?
Where there's like the loser who meets the girl, and they get wrapped. They get all the '80s John Hughes movies. They get wrapped up together, and at the end they're changed.
Except for Weird Science, which did not age.
Weird Science is crap. But in this. Oh, and in all those films, before the girl shows up, you see him interacting with his friends, and yeah, they're losers, or yeah, there's something weird going on, and you know, whatever. Everybody has some sort of interesting characteristics. This is where the humor comes from. This is where you fall in love with these characters, and you're like, I'm gonna root for this guy.
Right.
Didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
From the entire film, I didn't get any reason to root for this kid.
Fault specifically, perhaps, but I agree. I think the script could have been stronger. They could have done away with a lot of other things that I as much as people like the mouse, I feel like there was no point in having the mouse in this. Rat, whatever. The rat made no sense to me. The scene with Stargirl's mother wasn't really needed.
That's the thing. In those 80s films, they would have taken those interactions and mine some gold out of that, you know, giving you something to this kind of explains why she's like this.
Right.
I didn't get anything like okay, the mother's a costumer. Yeah. I didn't get anything really bizarre or weird about the mother, or anything that would like lead me to believe, oh, this is why this girl is this way, the way that she is. The mother didn't seem like some weird hippie. Yeah. She seemed like a normal woman, you know.
In the book, she had a dad.
Yeah. In the book, she had a dad? Was her family strange?
I wouldn't say strange. I would say they were definitely more normal than she was.
Well, what did the parents do? Did they ever go into that?
Was she an only in the book?
Yeah, she was an only. But the parents she had a dad. The mom was, in the movie, I feel like the mom was the same amount of normal. But the dad, since there's not a dad in the movie, I can't compare. But the dad was normal too.
They were like accountants or something. They didn't have like they had a normal household. There wasn't like animals running around or anything that would lead like.
No, if you were a new person in their house and you just walked in for the first time, you figure them as normal people. But I wouldn't say accountants people.
Alright.
What do you think would have made the movie better?
Like I said, just a better script with more interactions that let me care about these characters. Seriously, I could not care less about Leo. I could not care less about him at all. He was so boring and dull. I don't know why the weird, interesting flighty girl would have any interest in him at all.
She's the stalker.
Apparently, yeah, she's the stalker.
I think it's interesting. I'm watching. I do this a lot, having been, I guess, a film student. I sit there and I'm very much into story. When I was in film school, I wanted to be either a cinematographer or a scriptwriter. So a lot of that stuff really resonates with me. And when I'm watching this, I thought about how do we make this better? I always think about how could this have been better, right? And I'm watching it, and I immediately thought of The Wonder Years, that TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if only they had done it from the viewpoint of somebody reminiscing about the past. Because sometimes, while you're living something, especially when you're a teenager, life is awful, life is tough, it's the worst experience ever. But in hindsight, you see the beauty of it, and you can appreciate it more. And I think that if the story had been told from the viewpoint of an older person looking back at a time where he felt that there was a genuine shakeup in his life, and he could have pinpointed it to this particular moment in time, that would have made more sense. That would have made the story flow better.
But wasn't that what was going on?
No, because I don't think he was it wasn't like Daniel Stern adult reminiscing about him as a Fred Savage child. It wasn't that. It was just, the middle of the story isn't told with voiceover. So I'm assuming that the end is, since it's a voiceover, it's flashing back and then talking about the present. So I think that what would have made this story more interesting is if it had been prefaced in that vein of, this is now an adult man who's gone on with his life, has a career, has gotten married, maybe has a child, has a family, and is now, or a child or two, yes. And then in that moment, because I think as we get older, we think about what our lives were, what they could have been, and what it is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I find myself oftentimes thinking about, well, if I hadn't done this thing, I wouldn't be here. Or if I had done something different, where would I be now? So I think a lot of it's introspection, right? Because as you get older, you really think about the paths that your life has taken. As you get older, you really think about your mortality, right? And you really think about the things that are important. And I think if this person was kind of like the first person, there's that scene where he says to her, before you, no one looked at me. Her coming into his life was a big deal. And I think that, unfortunately, the film didn't convey it that well. I think that's one of the missteps of the film. I think, again, if they had done it more in that, Wonder Years, where he's completely, 30 years into the future. He's a 40-something, going on 50-year-old man who's gone down this road. And examining his life of, I have a lovely wife, I have a beautiful family, I have this great house, I have this great job, but I sometimes go back and reminisce about the life that I used to have and what could have been if I had done things differently.
Yeah.
What would have happened, if I followed this girl. She was my first crush, she was my first love. It didn't work out for us, but I sometimes find myself Googling her name and wondering where she is. That would have made me like this story more. I think having a different actor being that voice would have helped, because I think you were already done with him. He wasn't a great child actor. He was not a great.
I mean, he could act. The problem is he didn't act with any sort of charm. Like, well, I keep going back to the 80s films, but John Cusack
Yeah.
always played the loser in the movie. But he still had charm. There was something.
It's kind of funny. It's funny that you mentioned John Cusack because this young man, whose name I can't remember, please don't look it up. Don't care.
Graham something.
Whatever. This young man did a lot of stuff that Cusack would do. The shy smile and like kind of stuff like that, like just this conveying of awkwardness. And if you look at a movie like Say Anything, the Lloyd Dobler character, and I agree, Lloyd Dobler is charm personified because even though he's sort of like the outcast kid, everyone in that film loves him, whether they're the jocks or the stoners or whatever. He's just a likable guy. And I remember the first time I'd seen that movie, I was completely in love with that character. I was like, I want to date a Lloyd Dobler. And he doesn't, like, when you watch that movie, they're, like, as an adult now, like, that scene where he meets her father, Diane Court's dad, for the first time, then that dinner scene, it's very awkward. Who is this clown that's trying to court my daughter? And that's a very great scene.
But the thing is, like, what I'm saying is those scenes are written so that you can see the charm and the personality of the characters.
Right.
And this film lacked that because, honestly, the scripts never gave this kid anything really to work with.
Yeah.
That's
what I mean.
Other than just say these lines, and also sort of like, when she does something weird, sort of like squint and smile and tilt your head.
Right.
And
right.
It doesn't. I don't know. I feel bad, almost bad for this kid, because he just had really nothing to work with. And I'm guessing, to me, this whole thing just felt like an excuse to let that girl sing a couple of songs.
Possibly.
Because I think they were like, oh, she has a very pretty voice. Let's try and milk this. Let's chuck in a couple of songs, okay?
But again, I'm gonna say not the worst thing, not the best, but not the worst thing I ever saw. I think I saw merit in some of it, but I also feel like it could have been handled a lot better. And I think that's where a lot of these films need to focus on. You need to focus on the story. You need to write compelling dialogue. You need to have great characters. You can't just, have one good scene in a like almost 2-hour long movie. You have to have those poignant moments.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to watch Pixar movies and just really understand about story structure, the hero's journey, coming to the epiphany. I mean, I'm sure we can spout out any Pixar movie and like really break down the story structure and get to a place where we're all just really glad about the journey. Yeah. So I think in conclusion, this is probably the longest review we've done, which is amazing because I don't feel like we were 100% on board with this film.
No.
So that's pretty funny.
Well, when there's a lot to complain about, there's a lot to talk about. It's funny how it works out that way. When we love a film,
there's not
less than 20 minutes. When we're not on board, almost an hour.
We should probably post this in Onward together. Only that's gonna make for a long one, right? But anyway, so that's it for us. We will chat with you all soon.
If you're interested in watching this with your kids, don't be worried. There isn't any naughty bits in there. As far as the romantic relationship, it was about as PG as you can get.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, PG.
It was about as PG as you can get.
There was it's a Disney movie.
Some lips made contact, but that was about it. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.